The short story, and the one that I'm sure we've all had before, is that sleep is good for you. It provides immunity to a variety of diseases and mental health conditions, and it affords you the ability to rest so that you can return to life the next day as a normal functioning human being. The long story, however, and what I think we haven't had nearly enough of for my satisfaction, is how sleep influences your ability to think creative ideas. In this video, I'm going to be walking us through scientifically based evidence on how sleep affects your creativity and how it influences your ability to think creative ideas. I'm also going to talk about how to go about the act of sleeping to make sure that you're getting the most out of it and that it is serving you as opposed to working against your favor and your creative essence. So let's get right into the video. The first way that sleep affects your creativity is through memory retention. We know that events are ingrained into your memory during the REM sleep state. During REM sleep, the brain replays and processes events from the day. So if there's anything that you've learned that today, if there's something novel that your brain deems necessary to keep in your long-term memory, that's when it happens. So how does this affect your creativity? If you watched my video on how to be more creative, you remember that I talked about how important it is to introduce yourself to as many new ideas or concepts as possible, just to give your brain a bank of information to work with when connecting ideas for you. If your ability to remember these ideas and concepts is compromised, however, then it would be futile to attempt to feed this information into your brain because it can't stay there. You might have a very interesting life with all these amazing experiences that would make for genius creative ideas, but when it comes to the time for your brain to connect these experiences and generate ideas for you, then it can't happen because none of these were actively ingrained into your memory in the first place. This can also undermine your practice and its effectiveness. If you're practicing an instrument, for example, and you can't retain it into your memory, then it becomes problematic because a lot of practice would still lead to a stagnated growth simply because you're not retaining information the way that someone who is getting the right amount of sleep is. And so it becomes essentially a waste of time. The second way that sleeping affects your creativity is through inhibiting your access to the depth mind. And before I scare you away with all these fancy terms, allow me to explain. The depth mind essentially is your subconscious. REM sleep that we talked about also plays a role in something known as the incubation phase of creativity. This is when you're no longer actively working on something or even thinking about it, but your subconscious is still working on it. So that's when your brain is working to connect all these new concepts and information that you've given it so that it can generate a creative idea for you. In the book The Art of Creative Thinking, the author calls this the depth mind. So how does this affect your creativity? You might have heard of the phrase, I'm going to sleep on it, or you sleep on it. It's usually said when you want to make a decision of some sort and you don't trust yourself to make it in the moment, so you delegate the task to your future self to deal with it for you. The reason sleeping on it works is because sleeping is actually the easiest way to access the depth mind. It's that sweet spot between consciousness and unconsciousness when your brain has time to form connections and come up with solutions to problems. It can help you overcome creative blocks when you're working on a project and you hit a wall. Sleeping is the easiest way to just allow your depth mind to take over and work on these problems for you, which is why it's so important that creatives need to get their high quality sleep. The third way that sleep affects your creativity is through your imagination. Another beautiful thing that happens when you sleep is dreaming. In a process known as a neurochemical bath, there's this unique environment that's created in your brain when you're dreaming, where some aspects of it are more relaxed and others are more active, which allows for the vivid and sometimes illogical imagery that we now recognize as our dreams. How does this influence your creativity, you ask? I'm glad. So what happens when you're dreaming is that our logical brain is usually more relaxed than it usually is when we're awake. Which is why some of the dreams that we have, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, don't really seem to follow a line of logic. Dreams just happen to happen. Nothing makes sense in the world of dreams because it is not inhibited by the strict lines of logic that reality follows. So it's in dreams where dogs can suddenly talk, your brother is suddenly pregnant, all these random things that don't make sense happen, and it's usually pretty interesting to see, to watch unfold, and to retell later when you wake up. Dreams are fantastic for creativity because they essentially set the stage for the boundlessness with which we imagine in reality. Dreams allow your brain to be more comfortable pursuing unconventional ideas, and entertaining the thoughts that are just crazy enough to reek of creative genius. Dreaming is the reason why we have movies with talking animals and flying people and witches and all that funny stuff. I think it's such a core foundational aspect of creative thinking in general that everyone should allow themselves to access more frequently, because it leads to so much more open-mindedness, which is essential for creativity in general. The fourth way that sleeping affects your creativity is through emotional attachment slash processing. That neurochemical bath that happens when you're dreaming also works to bring about heightened emotional responses and awareness in general. And the REM sleep state also works to integrate your emotions into long-term memory. And there's two reasons why this is essential for your creativity. One is through emotional processing. So the creative process is usually full of emotional highs and lows. Coming up with something from scratch and building it and bringing it to life is not an easy task to take on. There's always challenges in there, always things going wrong, always so much excitement and joy when engaging in a creative process. It can be a lot to deal with. Sleep helps recharge our emotional brain circuits and retain a degree of level-headedness when dealing with these emotions in the first place. So you're less likely to fall into despair in the face of all those disasters that will 100% happen when you're working on a creative project. It allows you to just stay relaxed and calm and just to process those emotions a little better than you would if they were all over the place. And the second reason why emotional processing and awareness is so important is because it helps you to create that emotional attachment to your work. Emotions, I feel, stand at the core of anything that is even remotely to be considered as art. The way your work makes people feel and the way it makes you feel is one of the most important aspects of it there is out there. I would say having that emotional connection to your work adds another layer of authenticity to it, which I think just makes it that much more special. And that brings us to the second part of this video, where I teach you how to sleep like a boss so that you can make the most out of your sleep time and set yourself ahead in that creative game. I'm not even kidding when I say I'm at a stage in my life now where I actively cancel or back out of plans if I feel that they will get in the way of my sleep. And it's not even from a place of obligation or responsibility, but because I genuinely enjoy my sleep just that much. And there's very little that I deem worthy enough to sacrifice my sleep for. So in this section of the video, I'm going to share all the little adjustments that I've made in my life that have dramatically increased my sleep quality, so that you can access that deep, delicious state of sleep that will have you leaving the club early. Step number 1 to hiking your sleep quality is understanding your chronotype. Your chronotype is simply the time of the day or night that you are inclined naturally to go to sleep or to wake up. Some people are more inclined to wake up early or sleep early, and others are more inclined to sleep late and wake up late. We know these people as either early birds or night owls. Understanding which one of these you are is so crucial. A misconception that we have around early birds versus night owls is that we can choose which one of these we fall into, but it's actually a biologically predetermined aspect of our nature. It's literally written into your DNA. Some people are more active in the evenings, they function best at that time, and some people in the morning is their most productive time, etc. We tend to be rather harsh towards night owls in our modern society and more biased towards early birds, but both actually serve very important roles to our overall ecosystem as a society. We need our night owls and we need our early birds. They're all important to keeping the world alive. So if you're a night owl, for example, forcing yourself to be an early bird, then you're likely sabotaging both your sleep quality and your focus capacity when you're actually awake and trying to be productive. This goes the other way as well. I know my sleep quality personally dramatically improved when I stopped trying to be a night owl as a teenager, because it was a cool thing to do then, and decided to actively start honoring my natural sleep schedule. And now I love waking up with the sun, and I get so much done in the morning when I used to force myself to sleep. Not to mention, I just feel better overall, and I'm able to capitalize on my most productive hours when the need arises. So a great way to test for your chronotype is to check which times of the day you feel most productive and alert, and which times of the day you feel most tired. For me personally, I know my sleep runs out at around 6:30 or 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm usually my most productive around noon, so from like 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then by around 10:30 to 11:30 p.m. I am yawning all over the place. I'm ready to go to sleep. Some days and nights are outliers, but try and find the most consistent pattern that you portray throughout your life, and that would be your chronotype. This will dramatically improve your sleep quality because you're sleeping when your body recognizes it as the time to fall asleep, and you're waking up at the right time for you. You just ultimately feel so much more refreshed. Step number 2 is avoiding caffeine, especially later in the day. So what caffeine does is that it suppresses the transmission of something called adenosine. Adenosine is what builds up over the day slowly, and by nighttime it gives you that feeling of sleepiness essentially, because it's been building up all day, and by the time you're ready to go to sleep, adenosine is usually at its highest, and then it reduces as you go to sleep, and by the time you wake up it's run out and starts operating again. It's a whole cycle thingy going on. It affects your sleep because it tricks your brain into thinking that you're not tired, which is why a lot of people will report feeling more awake and stimulated after consuming caffeine right before they sleep. It leads you to have this low quality, shallow sleep that is the opposite of what we need as creatives, which is that deep dream sleep. The third tip to improve your sleep quality, and this one will actually have you leaving the club early, is alcohol. Now, I was telling my friend about this video idea and how I was going to talk about how sleep influences your creativity, and my friend told me, you better not tell us not to drink. So I'm not going to go as far as to tell anyone to not drink, but what I am going to tell you is that alcohol actively works to inhibit the REM sleep state. And if you've been paying attention in this video, then you remember that REM sleep is where all our events get ingrained into memory. So alcohol basically affects memory retention. It's damaging to your creativity because, as we talked about, it's so important for those ideas and connections to sit in the back of your mind so that your depth mind, first of all, works for you to create new ideas, and also so that your brain has a lot to work with when it's connecting those concepts. Step number 4 to increase your sleep quality is minding your lighting. So it's generally advisable for your eye health to avoid blue LED lighting, which is blaring into my face right now. A great way to do this is by using the night shield feature on your phone, if you have that, to sort of filter out that blue light. If you're in a position to do so, I'd also highly advise getting blue light filtered glasses to help you avoid the damaging effects of light to your eyes. Our brains use lighting as the way to signal our sleep cycle. And so, for example, once the sun sets and it becomes dark, then our brains take that as a signal to start winding down for sleep. Lighting in general interferes with that signaling of the brain to the body to start preparing for sleep. So a great way to counter that interfering with your signaling is by turning off the lighting in your house or dimming the lights when it's around nighttime. I personally prefer to turn off all my lights in general, and I keep that little light up to help me when I'm practicing guitar or sketching around an hour before bed, and I found it truly makes such a difference in how ready to sleep I am by the time I'm retiring to bed. It's also well known that your body needs to cool down in order for you to go to sleep, so maybe take off your sweater before going to bed or take a cold shower, and it will really improve your ability to fall asleep faster and the quality of said sleep once you get to it. Sleeping is one of those practices that every single living creature on the planet, be it plants or animals, partake in to some extent. It takes up to 25 to 30 years of the average human being's life, and it's safe to say that it's a very important aspect of life in general. So I hope this video helps you become more conscious of your sleep and how it affects your creativity. If you follow the advice in this video, you'll be sleeping like a baby in no time, and your creativity, your health, your mental health, they will all thank you for it, because there's not one single bodily process that does not benefit from higher quality sleep. If you'd like to understand how other aspects of your environment influence your creativity, then be sure to check out this video over here. Otherwise, my name is Sandra Vicky, and this channel is dedicated towards promoting creative growth, so if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, be sure to subscribe, because I'll be dropping so much more information in line with that. Otherwise, have a great week ahead, and I'll see you next week. Bye!